is going on, everybody? Welcome to another gaming interview. This time I'd like to introduce you guys to Lair Gaming.
Patrick, thanks for inviting me to do this. I'm really excited to answer some questions. I don't typically get to do a lot of Q&A stuff, so this sounds pretty exciting to me. I'm going to try to answer these as succinctly as I can, but I've also not rehearsed any answers, so these will kind of be off the cuff, but just bear with me. Hopefully it turns out all right.
Alright, let's get this gaming interview started. First question, when did you get into gaming?
I got into gaming really young. I remember getting a Super Nintendo around my 3rd birthday. I was born in 92, so that would have been like 95. But prior to getting that Super Nintendo, we already had an NES at home. My parents were gamers too. And so I started really young. Some of my favorites back then were obviously all the Mario games. I loved Super Mario World a lot when I was a kid. Eventually my favorites, I think the ones that really defined gaming for me when I was growing up, were like Star Fox 64 and Zelda Ocarina of Time. Really the Nintendo 64 era is what I remember the most of, but I played a lot of Super Nintendo before that.
What kind of games do you like?
I really like a lot of stuff. I feel like I've got a really wide gaming palette, because I like to play things from like Zelda games to Call of Duty to Halo to Farming Simulator to World of Warcraft to Dragon Ball Z. I feel like I like pretty much everything. I can't think of a lot of genres that I just don't like at all, but in general, I'm not a huge fan of puzzle games. I'm not really sure why that is. I like puzzles in real life. I mean, I like solving puzzles. I think that what it is that my work is kind of like a puzzle, and sometimes I'm trying to figure things out at work, and when I'm playing a video game, I kind of want to separate myself from that and not be thinking about puzzle stuff anymore. So I suspect that that has something to do with it. But I do like puzzles. I just don't really like puzzle games that much.
What fan base in the gaming community would you say is the worst and most toxic?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think for all the hate that certain like game communities get, I think the thing that's most damaging to people is just being a fan of someone who puts other people down. I think a lot of kids especially fall into that trap of like really idolizing big YouTube personalities or public figures in general who are big on like putting other people down. And I think that that's just not healthy in general. You know, I think it makes more sense to build each other up than put each other down.
What is your favorite console?
Man, I think it's got to be the Switch. The Switch is so cool. Like, if I were a kid and I had the Switch, I would be so... I don't know. Kids now don't understand how cool it is that they have the Switch, and they can just play their games at home, and they can dock them on the TV, and then they can just take them with them on the go. When I was a kid, we had the Game Boy, and you had to shove a bunch of AA batteries in there, and they would die really fast, and you have to get more batteries. And then we had the Nomad, which is like the closest thing to the Switch. You know, the Nomad would play Sega Genesis cartridges. And actually, hold on, I'll be right back. I have one. So this is a Nomad. And this thing is huge and bulky, but it plays Genesis cartridges. They go right here in this top slot, and you'd have to put a bunch of batteries in here. I have a battery, like a little battery case on here that extends the life of this thing, but you'd have to put like 8 batteries in this thing. Let me see if I can get it apart. Anyway, you had to put like 8 batteries in the Nomad to get it to run. And once you put those 8 batteries in there, you get to play for like 30 minutes. It would kill your battery so fast. So that was amazing, and it was really cool getting to take like Sonic the Hedgehog on the go with you or whatever. But the Switch, I mean, you can play for hours at a time. You can take Breath of the Wild with you, you know, these huge worlds and these huge adventures. And it's just amazing. Kids now do not have any idea how good they have it. If I wasn't going to say the Switch, though, I would probably say second to the Switch for me is probably PS2 or NES. I think both of those systems are incredible. I got a lot of PS2 games. You can kind of see them on this shelf right here behind me. This whole shelf that goes all the way across the wall, it's like 12 feet long, is all PS2 games. I love the PS2, and I've got NES games on another shelf. I've got a lot of those too, and they're the most fun systems to collect for. They've got some of the best games for the best value of any old systems, and you can buy like a ton of good or great PS2 or NES games for like $5. Super cheap.
What game are you most hyped for?
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm really gonna have to think on this because there are not a lot of games left in my looking forward to it brain right now. Animal Crossing is gonna be pretty awesome. I'm really excited about Animal Crossing. I think my wife is probably a little bit more excited about Animal Crossing, but I am too. Doom Eternal comes out that same day. I'm looking forward to Doom. Not like, it's not like the big game of the year for me or anything, but I'm gonna play it and I think it'll be fun. Aside from that, I mean, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was one that I was really, really, really looking forward to, and I'm playing that right now, so I'm not really thinking too much about what's coming down the road, but the big ones that I can think of are like Breath of the Wild 2 and Metroid Prime 4 and stuff like that. Those big kind of like, mythical sort of titles right now that we don't really know anything about. That's the stuff I'm really looking forward to. So I suspect that E3 2020 is going to be huge and we're going to learn some more about those big games. So I'm looking forward to that. Ask me again in like 6 months.
That is some good chocolate milk. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I was doing the interview. Next question. What is one game you would make if you could?
Man, this is a hard question. This is a really hard question, man. Okay, I think I have an answer for this one. I have been thinking about it for a few minutes here. If I could make one game and like really knock it out of the park, like do the best job in the world and everybody would love it, I think the game I would want to make is a new, really awesome Star Fox game. Because Star Fox, I have such great memories of playing Star Fox 64 when I was a kid. I've got great memories of playing even Star Fox Adventure, Star Fox Assault. I even liked Star Fox Zero on the Wii U, which a lot of people hated. I thought that game was fantastic. I loved it. I thought the controls made the game better because I thought it was just really cool and advanced, and I don't know. I loved it. But I think that if I could make one really good game, I would try to make a great Star Fox game. How I would do that? No idea. Well, some idea. I would maybe make it... It would need to be kind of like Starlink. I think the people that could do the best job on a Star Fox game, the way I want to see it in my head, is someone like maybe Platinum Games. I think they made Nier Automata or Automata, however you say that. Loved that game. And I think that if they could take that kind of weird feeling where it like mixes a lot of blends of gameplay together and kind of makes this big monster that's like all these different genres put together, I think that would be really cool. I think Star Fox Adventures kind of like played with that idea of doing something weird like that, but I think if they just went all in on making it weird and different and experimental, I think people would really like that. Second idea, Star Fox could probably be like an episodic thing. I've never liked the idea of episodic video game releases. Like, I think it's stupid to have like 5 parts of a game and sell them as you get done with them. I don't like that model. But I think Star Fox is something that's easy enough to execute really well that Nintendo could sell like a season pass for like $25, and then they could release one Star Fox episode every 3 months or something for a year, and I would totally be on board with that. Like, I think it's a great idea. I think that business model for that kind of game would work perfectly, because that's the kind of thing that you would replay over and over and over again, and it would only continue to get better as you had more pieces of the bigger picture. So that would be pretty cool.
What company would you choose to make your ideal game?
I kind of answered this next question in the last question, but I think if somebody were going to do that Star Fox game, it would probably be really cool if somebody like Platinum Games did it, or it would be really cool if it were just a Nintendo first party thing and they didn't shovel it off on a third party or second party developer. I think that just Nintendo can do such a good job when they really put their mind to it. And I think if they tried that, I think if they really tried to make a good Star Fox game again, this is the time that they can do it. I think they've learned from Star Fox Zero. I think it'll just be one more try and they'll knock it out of the park. But I'm kind of worried that Star Fox Zero did too much damage and they couldn't recover, because I've seen that game like brand new for like $5, and that was like 2 months after it released. So I'm kind of worried that Star Fox might be a thing of the past. We'll see.
What is your favorite location in a video game? Like, for example, a town or a dungeon?
I'm going to answer this question kind of weird. It's not a specific town or dungeon or anything like that, but I think my favorite just video game world to be a part of is probably Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is it was a PS2 game originally. It's been ported to the PS3 and then to the PS4. There was a remake of it. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and the world is huge and it's desolate and empty, and it's there's not a ton of stuff to look at. It's just environments. But my favorite thing in video games as far as environments go is like huge sense of scale. And I really like seeing huge buildings that make you feel like really, really small. And I like seeing just giant caverns and canyons and things like that. You know, I like to be able to stand on the edge of some giant pit or giant lake or whatever and just kind of take it all in. And Shadow of the Colossus is the king of that, I think. I mean, I think even to this day, I think that's the game that's given me the most sense of awe, where I just wanted to stand there and kind of take it all in. And I think that's really cool. So I would love more games like that, but there aren't a ton of them. Every once in a while, some of these big open world games will get it just right, where you come up over a hill and you get this huge view of everything. If it weren't for... Oh man, now I'm rethinking everything. I love Shadow of the Colossus, but my second, or maybe even my top, might actually be Death Stranding's world. Because Death Stranding's world, I loved it. I hated the snowy mountains, but I loved all the green grass and hills and mountains and stuff. I thought it was beautiful to look at. Man, maybe the world in Death Stranding. That was a lot of fun. I don't know, one of those.
I really hate these games. In your opinion, what are 3 of the worst games ever made?
All right, so the thing is, there are not many games that I hate. I like a lot of games. I like really bad games. I think that there are redeeming qualities even in some of the worst games out there. There are not very many games that I would be like, I hate this game. This is the worst game I've ever played. There are not many. I would say almost that there are none. Almost. But this one is the worst game I've ever played, and I hate it. I hate this game. This is the only one. It's called Castellian. It's awful. If you want to find some gameplay footage of this, you can, but there's like you play as this little dude right here. He looks like a little frog. You can kind of see him on there. And all the levels are like these castles, and they have like circular platforms around the outside of the castles. So the gimmick is that you're this little frog and you're trying to climb up the castle to get to the top. And it's like Kaizo Mario or something, if you're familiar with that, or it's like just every single level is just troll blocks and enemies that come out of nowhere and kill you. And the whole point of the game is to learn the patterns in order to make your way to the top of each castle. But it's just totally unforgiving, and the frame rate's awful because it's using like this kind of Mode 7 looking thing on the NES, and it just, it's really terrible. It plays horrible, and it's actually a port of an arcade game, and maybe the arcade version is really good. I don't know. I suspect not, but I hate this game. Don't ever buy this game. I bought it. I paid like $14 for it, and I felt like they ripped me off so bad. Don't buy Castellian. Hate it. Hate it. I've thought about getting rid of it, and I collect stuff. I don't ever get rid of anything, but I've thought about getting rid of that.
Who is your favorite video game music composer?
Okay, so I had to look this guy up because I couldn't remember his name, but his name is Nobuo Uematsu, and he is the composer for the Final Fantasy series. And I don't know if he's primarily the guy to thank for this, but one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time is the Final Fantasy X soundtrack. And there's a song in there in particular called To Xanarkand that I love. It's one of my favorite video game songs ever, and I listen to it all the time. It's really calming and relaxing, and I just love that song. So I'm not going to say that he's my favorite video game composer of all time, but that's one of my favorite video game soundtracks. Second to that would probably be the Shadow of the Colossus soundtrack, and then just barely a notch below that, Ocarina of Time, so I guess that's Koji Kondo probably. I don't know who did the Shadow of the Colossus one. Let's find out. Okay, so the Shadow of the Colossus soundtrack, I believe, is a guy named Kao Otani. I don't know. That could be right, that could be wrong, but I just looked it up and that's what it says. So those people, Nobuo Uematsu, Kao Otani, and Koji Kondo, probably those three. I mean, I like soundtracks from those three games the most, so I'd say those three guys. Well, thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. And like I said, it's really fun to do a Q&A sort of thing like this. I don't get to do these very often, so I appreciate it a lot and look forward to seeing the video. Thank you so much, man. Later.
Thank you very much for allowing me to interview you, Lair. I really had fun with this one. And by the way, guys, he's got some great Mario content on his channel. I highly recommend that y'all go and check him out. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description down below. Alright, that's it for this interview. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.